Hey guys, how's it going? It's the Tominator, and with Hadi Choopan officially unable to secure a US visa in time for the 2019 Mr. Olympia, I wanted to consider the possibility of how he would have fared among the men's open lineup this year. Like many of you, I think it's an absolute injustice that this guy who worked so hard to earn his spot is unable to compete due to that whole travel ban bullcrap. So I wanted to kind of make this video as a tribute to give him the attention he deserves. Because the short answer is, I think he would have done pretty damn well. Given how depleted the lineup will be, with 3 of the previous top 6 sidelined for one reason or another, and in light of Hadi's highly convincing victory just a few weeks ago at the Vancouver Pro, where he soundly defeated the likes of former 8th place finisher Nathan De Asha in the process, I think a top 6 finish was almost guaranteed. In fact, with Rodin and Heath and Rami out of the picture, I could even see him cracking into the top 3. Judging from the poll I took a few days ago, the vast majority of you guys feel top 6 is realistic as well, with about 20% saying he could land among the top 3. So what I want to do today is compare him to what might have been his chief competition, the real benchmark of excellence within the men's open category. Of course, we're talking about the one and only ageless wonder, Dexter Jackson. I think this is a great litmus test for Hadi because both of these guys recently qualified with decisive victories over some other big names. As mentioned already, Hadi defeated a formidable opponent in Nathan De Asha, plus a couple other top 10 caliber threats in the form of Ian Valliere and Lucas Osladil. Dexter likewise kept Osladil and Valliere, as well as emerging star Luke Sando, firmly in the rearview mirror at the Tampa Pro, reminding the world that there's levels to this shit and that we should never count out the blade. Both men went on to win on the merits of razor-sharp conditioning, quality detail, and complete development. Aside from the calves, neither one of them has many lagging body parts or structural deficiencies, so they both excel in the majority of the 8 mandatories, despite giving up several inches to many of their fellow competitors. Stats-wise, Dexter has gone on record declaring his height to be 5'7" and weighs roughly 245 pounds on stage these days. In Hadi Choopan's case, I'm not 100% sure what his measurements are, though most sources cite about 5'6" tall, and considering he used to compete in the 212 division, his weight is likely still hovering somewhere in the 220 to 230 pound range. The point is, both of them measure up pretty closely size-wise. Hadi is maybe a tad shorter, but also considerably thicker and stockier, while Dexter retains a prettier shape even in his advanced years. So at this point I wanted to go through a little side-by-side picture comparison I've compiled for you here, to see how exactly these two stack up. Obviously the lighting is quite different, as they were different shows and different stages, and the scaling might be slightly off, and that's on me, so it's never going to be a perfectly accurate comparison, but that's simply unavoidable until we ever get to see the day where they're actually standing next to each other on stage. But still, I think it makes for an interesting exercise and can begin to reveal certain things. In the front relax pose, I prefer Dexter. Hadi's quads are dominating, but Dexter's lats just jut out, creating an excellent taper and a nice full look through the upper body. If Dex could just hone in on his abdominal definition, this would be a take-home shot for him. In Hadi's defense, the lighting is a bit too dark in this pic. His lats are being obscured, so that's probably hurting him. Let's just say that this Vancouver Pro had some rather variable lighting, where if the bodybuilders weren't standing in the exact right spot, they tended to get hidden in shadow. But don't worry, because in a minute he'll step forward more, and the scales will definitely tip in his favor. Front double biceps also goes to Dex, for my money. His arms and shoulders have superior pop and roundness, and once again the lats are prominently featured, creating an excellent flow for him in this pose. Hadi's waistline and quads are better, but I don't think it's enough to win here. The front lat spread is a relatively weak shot for both of them. Dexter's a little too narrow across the chest and shoulders, and his slightly bloated stomach is hurting him more here, especially now that he doesn't have those awesome arms on display to compensate. Though his lats in isolation do still look better, I chalk that up mainly to lighting, as I've seen Hadi looking great in this shot elsewhere. So the Persian Wolf edges him out because of his wider structure, thicker chest, and more defined midsection. This next pose is difficult to judge because it's not a very flattering angle for Hadi, who I think generally has an excellent side chest. But unfortunately, individual pictures of him were somewhat scarce for the Vancouver Pro, so this is what we're going to have to make do with. In any case, Dexter also excels here. I think in real life, this one would pretty much be a toss-up, but based on this look, Dexter outshines him. His execution is flawless, everything is in perfect proportion, and the conditioning is on point. If I'm really going to nitpick, the only things I'd like to see is a sharper glute ham tie-in, deeper cuts through the abs, and perhaps a slightly more striated far pec. But other than that, this is about as good as it gets. Hadi actually looks crisper in all the areas I just mentioned, and the chest itself appears significantly thicker. And if his near arm isn't quite as good, his primary shoulder is outdoing even Dexter's world-class delt when we look at the mass from back to front. But again, the angle is off, and so the pose just doesn't present as well. I'm giving Dexter the nod here, but there's definitely an asterisk on this one. Back double biceps goes to Dexter. I actually think this is a bit unfair to Dex now, as the somewhat flat lighting, which aided him before by so clearly outlining his lats from the front, now hampers him in this shot, as much of the detail and 3D effect through his back is being washed out compared to the video footage I've seen. In short, I don't think this pose would be so close in reality. I think Dexter would absolutely destroy Hadi in the back double, as this is Hadi's weakest pose against arguably Dexter's strongest. But based on what's presented before us, I gotta admit, Hadi's smoking Dexter in the lower half. Dex is known for always bringing ripped glutes and hamstrings, but Hadi's are shredded on a whole nother level. The difference in their calf development is also more evident here from the rear, so Hadi beats him soundly from the waist down. But through the upper body, Dexter still reigns supreme. His back displays better taper and detail, and his arms and delts once again come out on top with that shapely roundness. I will say that Hadi looks immensely thick and powerful in this one, like a miniature modern-day Hercules almost, but I prefer the prettier lines and symmetry and flow of Dexter. Plus, like I said, I don't think these pictures do the blade justice whatsoever in terms of how dominant he would be here. The rear lat spread, however, goes to choopan. Once again, Dexter has that aesthetic quality and beautiful detail through the back, and his waist appears admirably slim, but Hadi is simply overpowering him with width and mass. Look at the incredibly meaty lats and traps, and those shoulders are like two big boulders capping it off. Plus, once again, the lower body is shredded to the max, so even though this remains one of Jackson's strongest shots, you have to give it up for Hadi. The ab and thigh is interesting because both of them fare well, but for different reasons. With Hadi, it's difficult to deny the super sliced midsection and amazingly large and separated quads. Considering these are the main body parts of the pose, you could pretty much say it's a foregone conclusion. But don't dismiss Dex just yet. His overall flow and balance in this one is actually better than Hadi's in my opinion, largely because of the flare through the lats, which gives him that appealing X-frame and the illusion of a smaller waist. Because Hadi's lats don't pop out as much, his waist appears blockier and it renders his whole upper body less impressive looking than it ought to be. But given that the blade's abs are not as defined as they once were, not to mention the fact that Hadi's thighs are undeniably leagues ahead, I think it would be ludicrous to not go with Hadi choopan here. Alright, and finally we come to the most muscular. A crowd pleaser for both of them, my vote goes to Hadi in the hands clasped. Now, Dexter looks amazing, no doubt. His arms and shoulders can hang with the best of them here, but Hadi is wider and absolutely blows him out of the water through the chest and abs. Plus, once again, those quads can't be topped. If you could somehow give Hadi Dexter's triceps with that nice outer sweep, this would practically be picture perfect for the Persian Wolf. The crab, I'm surprised to say, also goes to Hadi. I was expecting Dexter to prevail here because usually the crab shot tends to favor the arm-dominant guys. But in this case, choopan's chest is just so mind-blowingly good, it makes up for a somewhat underwhelming set of guns. Dexter's traps are looking absolutely outrageous, but his arms don't showcase as great from this angle as they do in, say, the double biceps. And once again, his legs and pecs can't hope to match up to Hadi's. So there you have it. When it's all said and done and we tally up the results, Hadi actually comes out on top 4-3. Of course, we missed the side triceps entirely because I couldn't find a shot of Dexter hitting it, and that one I suspect would have been a close call that could have gone either way, just like the side chest. So let's just say for argument's sake that Dexter takes it. That's still a 4-4 tie. Now, granted, as I'm sure most of you would agree, the lighting in those Vancouver Pro photos was miles ahead than that of the Tampa Pro, so the blade was certainly at a disadvantage in many of these poses. But still, it just goes to show how competitive Hadi choopan is among even the top open-class bodybuilders. At this point in time, I'm projecting Dexter for a solid top 4 finish at the upcoming Mr. O, and realistically, he could easily leapfrog 1 or 2 of the top 3 if Brandon Curry or Rolly Winkler missed the mark. Bonac is pretty consistent at nailing his conditioning, so I'd be surprised if Dexter's able to beat him, but Rowley and Curry are both somewhat unpredictable and could falter. But Hadi, just like Dexter and Bonac, has proven to be super consistent. He doesn't compete very often, but when he does, he always seems to be in peak form. So I think he could hang right there with Dex in a battle for that third or fourth spot. Do I think he could win it all? No, definitely not. Not as an Iranian who barely speaks a lick of English. The IFBB would never allow it, even if he deserved it. But top 3 is absolutely possible, and I think a top 6 finish would virtually be a lock. One final note is that I'm not trying to fuel the Hadi hype train, okay? I merely wanted to showcase a phenomenal talent that deserves to stand on that Olympia stage and has been wrongfully denied due to pure politics. It's ironic because we often talk about politics in professional bodybuilding in terms of corrupt judging and whatnot, with many hot-headed fans being quick to throw that word around as a convenient excuse anytime their favorite guy doesn't win. But in this case, it's literally the only thing preventing Hadi Choopan from getting up on stage and getting his just desserts at that Olympia. And I think it's a shame and an absolute injustice, and so he deserves this special consideration. So that's all for this one. Thanks for watching, everyone. You've all heard my opinion at length now, but please let us know in the comments, how do you think Hadi Choopan would do if he were allowed to compete at the 2019 Mr. Olympia? And don't forget to like and subscribe for more in-depth bodybuilding analysis like this. Until next time, I'm the Tominator signing off, and I'll be back.